Hello everyone and welcome to the American Civil War Gaming Club's YouTube channel. This is the first episode in a new series I'm going to be doing called A Game and a Chair. So just what is this new YouTube series actually going to be about? Well, I just wanted to have a format to have a general discussion on all things related to not just our club, but to the WDS Civil War Gamings. The WDS Games, which stands for Wargame Design Studios. If you look down below the video, there's going to be a link in the description. Click on that, check out their website if you haven't already done that in the past. But their games are phenomenal, and they are predominantly the games that we play in the American Civil War Gaming Club. And I wanted to use this format as a way to talk about things on a more entertaining level than what we perhaps do in the forum or other places around the club. So we can have discussions in this series about optional rules. We can critique the titles some. I can talk about the game mechanics and how they work. And really, whatever else comes to mind. I think there's all kinds of topics that we could explore in this series. I'm just going to see how it goes. And if you guys have suggestions, put them in the comments down below. We'll see where this takes us. But I want to start with something a little bit easy and talk about the WDS Civil War titles overall. I don't know if you realize it now, but there are 15 different games that WDS has created for their Civil War series. And these battles cover the entire scope of the Civil War. About half of them are from the Eastern Theater, while the other half are from the Western Theater. So you have a huge range of battles and campaigns that you can play. And probably the number one question that we get from everybody, as soon as they enter the club, the number one question is, well, which game is the best? And that question, everybody answers it differently. There is no right or wrong way to answer that question. Everybody has an opinion. So I'm going to put my opinion out there. Why not? I'm going to do this with a top 10 list. We're going to start at number 10 and count down all the way to number 1. And I want to preface this by saying that my top 10 list has nothing to do with how many people own a game. So when a new person enters the club, usually we tell them, well, buy Gettysburg. Not because Gettysburg is the best game. Well, maybe it is in your opinion. But because everybody in the club seems to own Gettysburg. It's by far the most common game. But I'm not going to take that into consideration here. This is just my opinion on which games are the best to play. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with number 10. And for me, number 10 was kind of a hard choice, but I ended up going with Campaign Overland. Now, this is a favorite of quite a few people, so it might be a surprise to see me having it all the way at number 10. So let me defend my position here. Let's start with the pros of this campaign. If you like large battles, Campaign Overland is probably very appealing to you. It has the Battle of the Wilderness, it has the Battle of Mine Run, it also has more like Spotsylvania, Cold Harbor, Grant's approach towards Richmond. There's just a lot of huge scenarios with this title. Not only that, but it has some absolutely massive maps. It has one that stretches nearly all the way from Richmond up to Washington, D.C. There are just some really huge, impressive maps included with the Campaign Overland title. But there are also some cons that go along with Campaign Overland, and that is why I have it dropped all the way to number 10. First off, there's a lot of confusing elements with Campaign Overland. And I could go on and on about all these, but I'm just going to point out a few of them here. Alright, pulled up on the screen now, I have the largest scenario in any WDS game. This is, I don't even think it has a name. It's just called Campaign Overland May to June 1864. Okay. It's 1,390 turns long. That's ridiculous. And the map itself is just humongous. You can't have one scenario with a map this size. It just doesn't work. But if you are that ambitious and you do want to create something on a scale that's almost incomprehensible, then at least do us a favor and have it make sense. This scenario and a number of other ones that they created trying to do some sort of masterpiece all fail, in my opinion, for numerous reasons. But I'm just going to point out one here real quick as just a shining example. Maybe two, we'll see. So let's just do info, find leader or units, and let's just look for General Early, all right? He's on here twice. So we go to the first General Early. We'll call him General Early number 1. He is located right there on the northern part of the map. Now let's go down to Richmond because, what do you know, there's another General Early in Richmond. There's a lot of leaders here twice, and I've never figured out why. When they created this game, they really should have included some sort of manual with these giant scenarios, because a lot of them just don't make sense the way they're constructed and the way they set up the units. It's just too confusing, and it makes them unplayable, in my opinion. If you like organized battles, this is not for you at all. Not only that, but I've never figured out what is up with all these replacement units over here, when these are supposed to enter the map, what their role is supposed to be, why there's so many one-man units involved. There's just a lot of mysteries with a few of these scenarios, which really affect the overall enjoyment, at least for me, of this title. Alright, back to the cons now. I'm going to put massive maps over on the con section, and I know it's a pro also, because this can really go both ways. Massive maps can be great if they're designed correctly, or if they are chopped up into smaller pieces in Scenario Editor and made into custom scenarios. But when you have a massive map, for instance, like the 989 by 1088 map within the Campaign Overland game, which encompasses almost 1.1 million hexes, and that's just too big for a single scenario. You need to be more realistic when you design these. Players can't play on a map with 1.1 million hexes. It makes me laugh. I know people want to fantasize about it, and they open up that 1380 turn scenario and think, wow, this is going to be great. But then I've never heard of anybody going the distance on that. I've heard people maybe go 100 turns before a outcome is decided, or they just agree to stop because it's no longer fun. Another thing about Campaign Overland, and I've talked about this a little bit, is just the sheer number of design errors which these games contain. And it's so disappointing because I want to love this title. I really do. But I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. On the screen there, you can see the Battle of Spotsylvania. And this was one of the battles I was most excited to open up and check out when I got this game. You can see the Federals are approaching from the northwest and the Confederates are approaching from the west. And this is really important. They are approaching from south of the Po River. The Confederates desperately need to stay south of the Po River because otherwise their entire left flank becomes vulnerable. There's only a few crossings over the Po, and the Confederates can guard those. But without that river being there, this whole scenario just becomes a different beast altogether. Now, the thing that drives me nuts, and this is what I'm talking about with errors, if you go into the scheduled reinforcement dialog, you'll see all these Federal units arriving, and that's perfectly fine, no problem there. And all the Confederates arrive south of the Po River until randomly 2:30 p.m. They begin to arrive north of the Po River, and not along a road, not along a trail, just in the middle of fields. Some of them arrive in the woods, but they just keep coming. I mean, who wants their artillery to enter the map where there are no roads or trails? And it's not just a few units. It's about a division and a half worth of troops that just keep coming through these fields and through these woods. And, I mean, where they show up on the map, I mean, you can see right here, is practically behind the Federal lines. And if I'm a Federal player, all I'm doing is distracting the rest of the Confederates, waiting for these troops to enter the map, isolating them and destroying them, and game over. So it's errors like this which really make Overland a disappointing title overall for me. I wish they had caught some of these, and I'm still hoping they'll correct them someday, but we're just going to have to wait and see. So that's my opinion of Campaign Overland. I do have it listed as number 10. I wish it was higher. I really want to like this title, but there's just a lot of inconsistency with it. Number 9. And for number 9, I decided to go with Campaign Shenandoah. This is a newer title, although I guess it's been a few years since it was released. And it's really high on some people's lists, other people not so much. And I'm one of those people that's just, not so much. But it does have some pros. One of them being it has really good smaller battles, and I like smaller battles. If you enjoy those, if you like those games where you've got 15 to maybe 35 turns to battle it out, this is a really solid title for you. It also has some unique maps. A lot of the other campaign titles focus on Northern Virginia. This one goes to Shenandoah and gives you a chance to fight on battlefields that you haven't played over 28 times before, so it's really nice being in the valley. And this title does have something for both sides. If you like Jackson's 62 campaign, you can focus on that, or if you are a Sheridan guy, you can refight his 1864 campaign. So for both Federal and Confederate players, this offers something that will appeal to them. But there's also some cons with Campaign Shenandoah. To begin with, it lacks any major signature battle. It does have the Battle of Cedar Creek, which has about 50,000 men. In my opinion, it's an okay battle, but it doesn't really do anything for me. I don't go out of my way to go fight at Cedar Creek. I mean, it's not that interesting of a scenario. It can't carry the title by itself. And I wish there were more what-if scenarios involved with the Campaign Shenandoah title. It lacks a lot of imagination. And they just gave us a lot of historical battles and some small what-ifs, but nothing major. I found it disappointing. Also, the 1862 and the 1864 scenarios, they play really differently. If you're a Federal in the club, you always want to play the Sheridan games. And if you're a Confederate, well, you always want to play the Jackson games. So it's kind of hard to find someone that, who wants to play as Nathaniel Banks? Nobody wants to be Banks, come on. And if you're the Confederates, do you really want to go in the valley in 1864 and look down the barrel of Federal repeating rifles? I sure as heck don't. So it's really complicated to find an opponent that really wants to play the opposite side as you in these games sometimes. All right, number 8 now. For that one, I chose Campaign Gettysburg. And I can already hear people typing on their keyboards saying, "Are you crazy? This is a great game. It belongs in the top 5. Well, this is my opinion. I just don't think it belongs in that top 5 area. To me, it's somewhere in that 5 to 10 range. And let me explain my reasoning behind all this. We're going to start first with the pros. It does have the Battle of Gettysburg. Obviously, it's Campaign Gettysburg. And Gettysburg itself is the most important battle of the most important war in American history. There have been more books written about Gettysburg than it feels like all the other battles of the Civil War put together. And it's going to continue to be like that. You can never get enough of the Battle of Gettysburg. I mean, just looking at the overhead map of this battle, Devil's Den, Round Top, Below Round Top, Peach Orchard. If you've played this 50 times like I have, and I'm sure many of you have, you just can close your eyes and see the battlefield without even trying. It's just implanted into your brain at this point. That's how many times we have played this battle. Another thing I like about Campaign Gettysburg is it has a ton of scenarios. When you open up this game and you begin to scroll, I think there's about 290 some odd scenarios that you can choose to play. That's a lot of scenarios. So if you just randomly chose one, it would take you pretty much your whole life to go through and play every scenario to completion. That is a lot of variety. And because it has so many scenarios, it has a lot of replayability. The Battle of Gettysburg will always be one of those great what-ifs of not just US history, but of world history. And because of that, you want to go back and replay it. You want to go do it over and over again. And that brings me to my cons. So, my biggest con with Campaign Gettysburg. It lacks any alternative options for the historical battle. When you read a book about Gettysburg, you get stuck on certain ideas and certain chapters. What if Stuart had been at Gettysburg? What if Stonewall Jackson was alive? What if Longstreet went around the flank? There are a lot of different variables that they could have explored with the historical Battle of Gettysburg itself. And instead, they concentrated on the entire campaign variables. And I get the intent behind that. I do. They wanted to present a full campaign where, maybe they fight in Maryland, maybe they fight in Northern Virginia, maybe they fight on the old Antietam battlefield or in some other place of Pennsylvania. And they gave you a lot of different campaign alternatives, which was cool, and I appreciate that. But for the historical battle itself, it is so boring. They give you one. That's it. You get the historical Battle of Gettysburg, or you get 290 some odd random what if other alternatives to non-Gettysburg related battles. And come on. Why not throw in Stonewall at Gettysburg? Why not throw in something like Stuart saves the day? Why not throw in any number of other alternative options to the historical Battle of Gettysburg? To me, that's what always keeps this title out of the top 5. They just needed to do something more with the actual historical battle itself. And I think the reason for that is that there's just too many scenarios. Whenever they designed this game, again, I have no clue, I wasn't there, but I just feel like they created too many scenarios and didn't concentrate on the moneymaker, which is the Battle of Gettysburg itself. And let me show you what I mean. Alright, here we have the file selection dialog for Campaign Gettysburg. And as I was talking about, there's just a lot of scenarios here with this title. And you go all the way down to 294. Each one has a weather variable, so really it's 294 times 2 when you're scrolling up and down this list. And when I say they have too many scenarios, I'm talking about things like this. Let's go to on a collision course. We start at, 217. Let's just start scrolling down. These are all the different variables you could play with on a collision course. My goodness, it goes all the way down to 264. So that's a lot of scenarios based on one idea. But then you go back up to the actual Battle of Gettysburg itself, all the way up here. And you've got historical Gettysburg. And that's it. July 1st through 3rd. There's no historical what if Stuart was here. There's no what if, Stonewall Jackson was alive, or what if Reynolds defended the Round Tops. There was just a lot of fun alternatives that could have been pursued, but I feel like they just spent so much time worrying about all these other things, which are great. They're fine scenarios. But again, the real star of this title should be the Battle of Gettysburg, and I wish they would have concentrated more on that. Alright, so that's my view of Campaign Gettysburg. Probably not a popular view, but that's my view. Let's go to number 7 now, and for that title, I have Campaign Chancellorsville. When I got Campaign Chancellorsville, I was underwhelmed. I did not appreciate it at the time. I just didn't. But then I began to explore it more, and it gets better and better and better. So let's start with the pros of this campaign. It has some epically large battles. If you enjoy big battles, you're going to like Campaign Chancellorsville. Specifically, Scenario 002F. I wish it had a better title, but, it is what it is. But this scenario is really cool. It has about 200,000 men, it involves river crossings, and it's a meeting engagement style battle. It has everything. And this scenario by itself really improves the entire Campaign Chancellorsville experience. It is such a good scenario. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. So along with that, you still have other really large battles like Chancellorsville and Fredericksburg. You get these great signature battles of the Civil War. And you get a lot of hidden gems. This is what has impressed me most about Chancellorsville. Over the years, I concentrated so much on Chancellorsville and Fredericksburg that I never looked much at the alternative scenarios. And when I did, finally, I realized, wow, there's a lot of good things on this title. So definitely do yourself a favor, look around, and check out some of the other scenarios with Campaign Chancellorsville. That being said, there are some cons here. To begin with, it needs more maps. Chancellorsville is a really good game, but it has one basic map that they use for probably 90% or more of the scenarios, and you get really tired of the same map over and over again. I wish we had some more variety there. It also lacks any real good alternative scenarios for Fredericksburg. There are a lot of alternatives for Chancellorsville, but for Fredericksburg it's very limited. They didn't really explore that battle very much. And I want to show you a missed opportunity which could have really changed Chancellorsville into a much better game. On the screen now is the Battle of Fredericksburg. If you've played this, you probably already know where I'm going with this. When you click on the overhead map, you realize you're using about maybe 1/10 of the map, and that's it. The battle is not going to spread to other parts of this map the way it's set up. It's just too confining of an area. And it really makes you wonder why they wouldn't just move the eastern edge of this map about 100 hexes and allow the sides some breathing room. And by doing that, you also open up all these amusing what-if possibilities. What if Burnside moves to the east? What if he tries to outflank Lee on his right? And you could have really created some alternate scenarios here, which could have been a lot of fun. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, they chose not to do that. But nonetheless, I still think Campaign Chancellorsville is a really good game. If you don't already own it, go get it and check it out. You really won't be disappointed with this title. Number 6, we've got Campaign Petersburg. And this is probably the most controversial of my picks, 6 through number 10. I love Petersburg. I really do. I think it's such a good title. And I still think it suffers from this illusion that it's just this boring trench warfare kind of title. But it's really not. It has, on the pro side, a lot of really good smaller battles that you might not expect. If you enjoy, like I said, smaller battles which are 15 to 35 turns and involve a division, maybe a corps of infantry, then this battle is really for you. And not only are the smaller battles good, they're really even. You wouldn't expect it, given that it's 1864, 1865, but a lot of the scenarios here are really evenly matched, and it's a lot of fun whether you're playing as the Federals or the Confederates. It also has some unique maps. Again, we're getting out of that Northern Virginia area and we're going down to the Petersburg area, so it's nice to play on battlefields that we haven't played on time and time again. And as I mentioned already, it has a lot of even scenarios. That was the one thing I was not expecting with this title, but that I've always been pleasantly surprised with, was just how evenly matched a lot of these scenarios are. There are some cons with Petersburg though. The main one being, and I think this is why people have never really gravitated towards it, is that it lacks any major open field battles. It doesn't have a signature battle like Gettysburg or Antietam. It's just a whole lot of smaller battles making up a campaign game. When you check out the main battlefield map for Petersburg, you kind of appreciate how large this area really is. It centers around Petersburg itself and includes a lot of the area south of that city. And my question has always been, why didn't they create a scenario using this map which has two large armies clashing in a more traditional, maybe 1862, 1863 style battle in these fields? Because if you had taken Grant's army besieging Lee's army, that by itself isn't that much fun. But when you take part of Lee's army and maybe you shift them around Grant's flank, or maybe you have an alternative scenario where, Johnston comes up from North Carolina, and you have this March or April 1865 climactic battle where the Confederates are trying just one last time to throw back Grant's army, I think we would all play that scenario time and time again. I know the Confederates would, just to see if we could reverse the course of the war at this late date. I think they missed an opportunity here to add a really fun scenario. But that's really my only knock against Petersburg. I just wish they had included some signature battle or what-if battle. Alright, so going back to the original question of which game is the best, let's quickly recap here as we come to the end of this first episode. We've got number 10, Overland, number 9, Shenandoah, number 8, Gettysburg, number 7, Chancellorsville, and number 6, Petersburg. Feel free to light me up in the comments down below if you completely disagree with some of these decisions. I know I'm going to hear it from a few people. I mean, having Gettysburg as number 8 and Petersburg as number 6, man, that is bold. But you know what? Let's have some fun. So put it in the comments down below. I'll try to respond to people a little bit and have a fun conversation if you like. But those are my number 6 through 10 choices. In the next episode, we're going to continue to talk about which game is the best, in my opinion. And there are still 10 more titles to go. We've got Ozark, Antietam, Corinth, Vicksburg, Peninsula. Which of these is going to make the top 5? You know, what would you put in the top 5 from this list? What would you keep off? I really appreciate everyone who has watched this. As always, be sure to like the video. When you like this video, it recommends it to other people searching for Civil War gaming and Civil War videos. The more eyes that we can get on these WDS games and on our American Civil War Gaming Club in general, the better. So be sure to like the video and also subscribe. When you do that, it will send you notifications when there are new videos posted, so you can stay up to date about everything going on in the American Civil War Gaming Club. And if you do want more info on that club, you can go to acwgc.net. The link is in the description below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Until then, keep gaming.